Evan Cross sat alone in the corner of the spaceport cafe, his hands wrapped around a cup of lukewarm coffee. Jobs had been hard to find lately, and the ones that came his way were usually dangerous or paid too little. He was a former soldier, used to tough work, but this time he needed something easy, something that would let him breathe for a while. That was when a shadow fell over his table. He looked up and saw a tall alien woman dressed in silver robes, her skin a pale shade of blue that shimmered under the station lights. Her eyes were sharp, studying him like she already knew everything about him. "Mr. Cross?" she asked in perfect standard, her voice calm but commanding. He nodded slowly. "That's me. My name is Soraya," she said, sliding into the seat across from him without asking. "I represent a very private client, and I have a job for you." Evan raised an eyebrow. "What kind of job?" "Escort," she said simply. "You will be responsible for the safe transport of 2 young women to our homeworld." Her tone was matter-of-fact, like she was ordering a meal instead of hiring someone for a job. Evan leaned back. "That's it, just escort?" "Yes," Soraya replied, her gaze unwavering. "You will be paid well more than enough to cover a year of living expenses on Earth." It sounded too good, too easy. He had done escort work before, and it was never this simple. There was always a catch. "Who am I escorting?" he asked. "My daughters," she said without hesitation. "Lyra and Vea." Evan frowned. "You want a human to guard your kids? Don't you have your own security?" Soraya's lips curved into a small, unreadable smile. "I do, but my daughters prefer a human for this task," she said. "They are of age and capable of travel. But there are reasons why they require you specifically." That last part set off alarms in his head. "Why me, specifically?" "You have the right combination of skills and other qualities," Soraya said vaguely. "It will become clear in time." Evan studied her for a moment, trying to read her expression. She was hiding something. He was sure of it, but the pay she was offering could wipe out all his debts and then some. Against his better judgment, he said, "All right, I'll take it." Soraya's smile widened just a little. "Good," she said, sliding a small data chip across the table. "There. Ship leaves in 2 hours. You will meet them at Dock 17 when she left." Evan stared at the chip for a long moment before pocketing it. He told himself it was just another job, but deep down he knew it wasn't. 2 hours later, he arrived at Dock 17. The ship waiting there was sleek and polished. A private transport that screamed wealth, standing at the base of the boarding ramp. Were the twins, Lyra and Vea. They were identical tall, slender, with the same pale blue skin as their mother. Their silver hair shimmered like liquid metal, and their eyes glowed faintly in the dim hangar light. But what caught Evan's attention was the way they were looking at him, not with curiosity, not with caution, but with something else, something that made him uneasy, human, one of them said softly, her voice like music, but edged with something sharp. "You're the one our mother spoke of." The other added, a faint smile playing at her lips. Evan forced a professional smile. "I'm Evan Cross. I'll be your escort for this trip." The twins exchanged a glance that was almost a secret conversation. Then Lyra thought it was Lyra stepped forward. "We're glad you came," she said. "We've been waiting for you." The way she said it made his skin prickle as they boarded the ship. Evan felt a growing sense that this job was not going to be simple. He had no idea that from the moment he accepted it, his life had already started to change. That night, as the ship drifted away from the station, Evan woke to find both twins standing by his bed in the dim cabin light. They were silent for a long moment before Vea finally spoke, her voice low, almost a whisper. "You're the one," she said. "We've chosen." Evan's breath caught. Chosen for what? Before he could ask, the twins turned and left without another word. leaving him in the dark with more questions than answers. The next morning, Evan sat in the ship's mess hall, nursing a cup of bitter coffee while staring out at the streaks of stars rushing past. The twins entered together, moving with that strange grace that made them seem almost like they were floating. They didn't speak at first, only sat across from him. Their eyes locked on him in an unsettling way. Finally, Lyra broke the silence. "We need to make a stop before we reach our homeworld." Evan frowned. "Your mother didn't mention anything about detours?" Vea tilted her head slightly. "She doesn't know, and you won't tell her." The way she said it wasn't a question, it was an order wrapped in silk. Evan set down his cup. "Why do I get the feeling I'm already in the middle of something I didn't agree to?" The twins exchanged another one of those silent looks, the kind that made him feel like an outsider to a conversation happening in their heads. "You agreed to protect us," Lyra said. "This is part of that." Before he could press further, the ship's come crackled to life with an incoming message from the port authority of a nearby station. It was a simple notice. Docking request approved, but the voice of the controller had a certain tightness to it, like he knew exactly who was coming when they landed. The station felt wrong the moment Evan stepped out. The air smelled faintly of burned metal, and the corridors were too quiet for a public hub. He caught glimpses of shadowy figures watching them from a distance. The twins didn't seem concerned, walking as if they were on a casual stroll. Evan, on the other hand, kept his hand close to his sidearm as they rounded a corner. A tall alien, with scaled skin and cold yellow eyes, stepped into their path. His gaze moved past the twins and locked directly on Evan. "So, the human arrives," he said slowly, his voice carrying an odd mixture of amusement and recognition. Evan's hand tightened on his weapon. "Do I know you?" The alien grinned, showing sharp teeth. "Not yet, but you will," before Evan could react. The twins stepped in front of him. "He's under our protection," Vea said firmly. The alien's smile didn't fade. "Yes, and soon he will be much more than that." The tension was broken by the sound of boots approaching from behind. Evan turned to see a group of armored figures closing in, their weapons low but ready. The twins didn't move, didn't even flinch. Instead, Lyra leaned closer to Evan and whispered, "This is why we needed you." The next few minutes were Blurvin's training took over as the armored figures advanced. He shoved the twins toward cover, drawing his weapon and firing in quick bursts. The air filled with the sharp smell of discharged plasma, shouts echoing through the narrow corridor. When the last of the attackers fell, Evan spun to check the twins. They were fine, more than fine. In fact, they looked almost pleased. Vea stepped forward and placed a hand lightly on his chest, her eyes locking with his. "You fight well, human," she said softly. "Better than we hoped." Evan pulled back slightly, still breathing hard. "What exactly am I fighting for here?" Lyra's faint smile returned. "Not for us. For what comes next." They turned and began walking back toward the ship as if nothing had happened. Evan followed, every instinct screaming that he was being pulled into something deep and dangerous. But the strangest part was he wasn't sure he wanted to get out. The ship had been running silent for hours, its engines humming softly in the background. Evan sat alone in the cockpit, scanning the empty stretch of space ahead, trying to shake the unease that had been gnawing at him since the station. The twins were in their quarters, or so he thought. Then, without warning, a sharp metallic thud echoed through the hull. It wasn't a docking clamp, it was too small, too fast. His instincts told him one thing: boarding. Before he could sound the alarm, the cockpit door slid open and Lyra stepped in, calm as if nothing was wrong. "We have guests," she said quietly, her eyes locking with his. He rose to his feet. "What kind of guests?" "The uninvited kind." Vea's voice came from behind him, and when he turned, she was already holding a compact alien weapon, sleek and lethal. It wasn't one he recognized. The lights flickered once, twice, then went red, somewhere deep. In the ship, metal tore against metal, followed by the echo of heavy boots. Evan moved toward the corridor, weapon drawn, but the twins didn't follow. They stayed exactly where they were, watching him. Are you going to help, or just stare? He snapped. Lyra tilted her head slightly. We're watching. How you handle what's coming. The first intruder appeared at the end of the hall, wearing black combat armor with a red emblem that looked like a coiled serpent. He wasn't. Alone, 3 more followed, weapons up, moving with the precision of trained killers. Evan didn't wait. He opened fire, forcing them to dive for cover, his shots cracking through the recycled air. The fight was fast and vicious. Plasma bolts lighting the narrow corridor like lightning when the last of the intruders dropped. Evan's heart was hammering, his arm aching from the recoil. He turned to check the twins again, but they were gone. A sudden chill ran through him. He found them minutes later, not hiding, not shaken, but standing in the cargo bay around a long, black case he hadn't seen before. What is that? He demanded. Vea looked up, her voice calm. Something we can't open without you. Lyra's gaze locked onto his. And now you've proven you're strong enough. Evan took a step closer, every instinct telling him not to get involved. But before he could speak, the case gave a faint hums if it could hear them, and a row of alien glyphs lit up across its surface. Vea's smile was slow and deliberate. Its starting asterisk. Evan didn't sleep that night. The hum from the black case never stopped, a low, vibrating sound that seemed to seep into his bones every time he closed his eyes. He thought he heard whispers, soft alien words he couldn't understand, but when he turned on the lights, the twins were nowhere to be seen. By morning, if you could call the ship's dim light cycle morning, he found them in the observation lounge, staring out at a swirl of blue nebula gas. They didn't turn when he entered. Beautiful, isn't it? Lyra said softly, her reflection in the glass seeming almost more alive than she was. Sure, Evan muttered. Now tell me what that thing in the cargo bay is. Neither answered right away. Finally, Vea spoke. It's older than our people. Older than yours, too. Her voice was calm, but there was something in her eyes, a flicker of fear or maybe hunger. He couldn't tell. It's a relic, Lyra added. And it reacts only to certain blood. Evan felt his stomach. Titan, you're telling me you dragged me into this because of my blood? No, Vea corrected gently, because of what your blood can become. Before he could push for answers, the ship jolted hard, an alarm blared, and Evan rushed to the cockpit, scanning for threats. A lone vessel was shadowing them, not firing, not hailing, just following. Its black hull was etched with the same serpent emblem he had seen on the intruder's armor. The twins appeared behind him without a sound. They'll keep following until we open it, Lyra said. Her tone strangely serene. Evan turned to face them. Open what? The case. Are you insane? Vea stepped closer, her gaze locked on his. You've already touched it, haven't you? He hesitated, remembering the moment in the cargo bay when his hand had brushed the smooth black surface. The twins exchanged a glance, almost smiling that night. He tried to lock the cargo bay, but the doors wouldn't respond to his access codes. When he finally forced them open, the case was gone. Standing in its place were the twins, each holding one of its sides, their eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. We couldn't wait any longer, Lyra said, her voice barely above a whisper. Vea added, now you'll see why you were chosen. The case split open with a hiss, flooding the room with a cold silver light that seemed to pulse in time with his heartbeat. Evan's vision blurred. His knees went weak, and somewhere far away, he thought he heard both of them speaking at once, not in words he could understand, but in a language that felt like it had been buried inside him all his life, waiting to be awakened. Evan woke on the floor of the cargo bay, the cold metal biting into his skin. His head throbbed, and, for a moment, he couldn't remember where he was. Then the memory hit the case. The silver light. The twins' voices in that strange language. He sat up fast, but the room was empty, the case gone. His breathing was heavy, his chest tight. That's when he noticed his hands. The faintest trace of glowing lines ran across his veins, like threads. Of liquid silver under his skin, he rubbed at them, but they didn't fade. The twins appeared in the doorway, silhouettes against the dim corridor light. "You're changing," Lyra said softly, almost with pride. "What did you do to me?" Evan growled. "Nothing you didn't allow," Vea replied, stepping closer. "The relic simply woke what was already inside you." Evan stood, every muscle tense. "I'm not your experiment." Lyra's smile was faint. "You're not." "You're our key." Before he could demand answers, the ship shuddered violently. Throwing him against the wall, the serpent-marked vessel had caught up, and this time it was firing. Explosions rattled the hull as alarms screamed. Evan rushed to the cockpit, but the twins followed without urgency. "They know you've activated it," Vea said. Strapping herself into the co-pilot's seat, "They'll do anything to take you alive." The targeting screens lit up with enemy lock-ons. Evan swore under his breath. Pulling the ship into evasive maneuvers, the twins moved in sync, pressing controls he didn't recognize. Rerouting systems like they'd done this 1,000 times. Then Lyra leaned close to him, her voice low enough that Vea wouldn't hear. "If we make it through this, you'll have to decide whether to run from us or rule with us." The ship rocked again, and a warning light flared red hole breach in the rear compartments. Without thinking, Evan grabbed his weapon and headed back. The silver lines on his skin glowing brighter with every step. He didn't know if it was adrenaline or whatever the relic had done to him. All he knew was that the next person who tried to board this ship was going to regret it. The breach alarms were still screaming when Evan reached the rear compartments. The air was thin, cold, and filled with drifting sparks from ruptured panels. A faint hiss of escaping oxygen echoed in the narrow corridor. But what caught his attention wasn't the damage, it was the fact that the breach door had been unlocked from the inside. He froze, his weapon ready, scanning the shadows. A figure stepped into view, not one of the serpent-marked soldiers, but Vaya, her silver hair loose, her expression unreadable. "You shouldn't be here," she said calmly. As if they weren't under attack, Evan's grip tightened. "You opened the door instead of denying it," she smiled faintly. "They needed to get close enough to see you, to smell you, before he could demand an explanation." The hull behind her shuddered and split, and two armored intruders forced their way in. Vea didn't flinch. She simply stepped aside, letting them focus on Evan. His instincts screamed trap, but there was no time to think. The fight was fast, and brutal. One soldier went down with a broken visor. The other hit the floor with a burning plasma hole in his chest. Evan's breathing was harsh, the silver glow in his veins now bright enough to reflect off the bulkheads. Vaya stepped forward again, studying him like a scientist observing a test. "You're almost ready," she whispered. "Ready for what?" Evan barked, his voice echoing. In the damaged compartment, Lyra's voice answered from behind him, low and steady. "For the moment when they stop chasing us and start kneeling." But before he could process her words, the ship's systems gave a low, dying hum. The engines had gone silent, and the stars outside the viewport stopped moving. They weren't drifting. Something had caught them. And when Evan looked through the breach into the darkness beyond, he realized it wasn't a ship holding them in place. It was something alive. The thing outside was massive, its shape barely visible against the void. At first, Evan thought it was some kind of bioship, but then it moved in a way no machine could, like a predator circling prey. Its surface pulsed with faint light, veins of color shifting in patterns that made his skin crawl. The ship's scanners couldn't get a reading. Only static. Lyra stepped up beside him, her eyes reflecting the creature's glow. "It came for the relic," she said softly. "And now?" "It comes for you," Vea's voice followed, low and certain. "Don't be afraid." Humanness is the last part. Before Evan could react, the twins each took one of his arms. Their grip surprisingly strong. They led him back to the cargo. Bea, except the black case was no longer there. In its place was a swirling column of silver light, stretching from floor to ceiling. The glow from his veins answered it, each pulse syncing with a strange rhythm in the air. "What is this?" Evan demanded, struggling to pull free. "Our throne," Lyra said, without hesitation. "Our bond," Vea added, her voice almost a whisper. "And your choice," they both said together. The ship trembled as the creature outside latched onto the hull, its weight dragging them into darkness. Panels burst, alarms wailed. But the twins didn't move, they only watched him. "If you step inside, you become ours." "And we become yours," Lyra said. "No one will be able to touch you." "If you refuse," Vea continued, "they will take you and tear apart everything you are, piece by piece." Evan's pulse was pounding in his ears, the glow in his veins now blinding outside. The creature's eyes pressed close to the viewport. He didn't know if this was salvation, a trap, or something far worse. But he knew one thing. Whatever he chose, there would be no going back. With a deep breath, Evan stepped forward into the light. The last thing he saw before it swallowed him was the twins' face, Sizza smiling. Not with victory, but with satisfaction. And somewhere in the endless dark beyond, the creature bowed its massive head.